Hey, listeners, thanks for tuning into the podcast. I just want to take a moment to mention the podcast sponsor, retrogamestore.com.au. Head over there for all your Game Boy refurbish and repair needs. Screens, shells, buttons, and all the bits and pieces. And there's a complete custom build made to order service as well. Also, plenty more retro gaming goodness like video cables, display stand and power supplies, controls, etc. And you can add the code PixelPie at checkout to get 10% off your order. Also, take a moment to say if you enjoyed this episode and haven't already, give it a subscribe or follow and a review where you can. And maybe you want to recommend the Pixel Pie podcast to anyone you know that would enjoy it. That'd be really appreciated. So thanks for listening, and now let's get on with the show.
Hi, this is Rob from Raw Talent Arts, and this is the Pixel Pie podcast.
G'day, Rob, mate. How you doing?
Hello, not too bad, thank you.
Okie dokie. Well, welcome to the Pixel Pie podcast. Here in sunny Brisbane, Australia. So like 5 p.m. for me here, and it's really starting to heat up. How's about yourself? How's your local weather and stuff? Yeah, it's going to get hot. I'm going to whinge about it. Next probably 20 episodes, I'm going to be sitting in this little room. I can't run the aircon because everybody will hear my aircon, but it is nice at the moment. How about yourself?
I wish I even had aircon to turn on or off, but there we go.
Yeah. How about yourself? How's your weather and sort of situation at the moment?
It's on and off, to be honest. It's
whereabouts are you located?
It's been warm for September and October, but recently over the last couple of weeks it has got cold at nights, and the heating has come on a couple of times in the morning, just to liven it up a bit.
And whereabouts are you, Rob?
I'm in Norwich, UK.
Okay.
Cool. So that's southeast.
Right. I follow some mountain biking stuff, the Enduro World Series, and they just wrapped up in Scotland, and it was just wet, so wet. And I was like,
it's beautiful though.
Yeah, I bet Ilanthal or something. I probably butchered that.
Yeah.
Anyway, about Rob. So Rob, I kind of found you on Instagram under Raw Talent Art, R.A.W. Talent Art, and
correct.
The reason I noticed you is you have some pretty amazing console. I'll just at this point we'll narrow it down, but I guess console mods, both outside and in. I've just got to go to your latest post, for example, which is a Super Nintendo or a SNES for us lazy Aussies, and it's a kind of like a metallic pearl silver with some sort of yellow and pink pinstripe edging accents. And it's just freaking gorgeous. There's another one which is one of the American SNESes, and it's sort of like this beautiful shiny mirror gloss metallic purple with the what's his name, Popper, the little Pokemon.
It's a Pokemon. I think it's I can't remember the name. It was a custom order, personal order from someone. To be honest, I'm not a massive fan of Pokemon. I like them, but I'm not like into all the names. I think it's like Poi or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Someone's shouting at their car stereo or their headphones.
Yeah, but the paintwork is flip paint, which is called chameleon paint. So it's when you move it in the light, it changes color, like on the TVR cars and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and then you can just I could just go through here and I could list off a whole bunch of stuff. But anybody that's kind of got the opportunity, just go now and find Rob, R.A.W. Talent. I mean, there's a sort of like a blue and white Yoshi egg styled 64. And then as you go through, there's this kind of weathered, aged, moldy stone, but shiny, glossy Zelda GameCube. And then there's a lot of other shots of internals as well. So clearly you don't just make things pretty on the outside. You get in there and you do a bunch of work inside. I mean, something here that's pretty cool is the Super Famicom emblem that lights up.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty bloody awesome. So yeah, I mean, I always like to sort of go back in history and then work my way forward, but I'm just going to sort of let you tell the story. Like, how did Rob, you must have some sort of automotive paint skills or something, and electronic skills. You would think. Or you're just a jet.
Basically, I've always been into design and art. That's all I've ever been good at.
Yeah.
And for a while, I was an illustrator.
Right.
So I illustrated a few books for people that never got published.
What sort of books?
One was a children's book. I've done a couple of front covers for people. Basically, I became disillusioned with it because when I was doing it, you had to kind of bid for jobs,
right?
And because I was supporting myself, I kept getting undercut by people that still lived with mum and dad and that sort of thing, so they could bid lower for jobs, and I found it really hard to make a living off it.
Sure.
So I became disillusioned with it, gave it up, and just got a mundane delivery job, basically, with a supermarket called Sainsbury's over here. Right. Other supermarkets are available, and and I did that for a few years, and I just became really kind of down, because without the design process in my life, I just feel like I'm just not contributing to anything and not doing myself a favor. I'm not using the skills that I naturally had. And so I started thinking, what can I do that's not illustration, but, that I can enjoy? And I thought, well, my two of my big passions, one is illustration, design, and the other is gaming. And I thought, well, maybe I can put those two things together and see what happens. So I had a PlayStation 1, and I thought, oh, I'll do just a paint job on it. And it was a Doom paint job, and it was okay. It wasn't too bad, but I enjoyed the process. And then I started looking more into how to hone the skills and different materials I could use. And basically I studied how to professionally paint cars, what materials, the process, prep work, finishing, all that sort of thing.
A lot of your work just gives that impression that there's like, even if you're not getting too fancy, there's a couple of consoles in here that I'm just sort of flicking through you into the moment. There's like a black N64 and a white N64. The white N64 is just this gorgeous sort of pearl white, you could roll out like an M3 BMW like that. It's like a console that is made in the last few years. And that's something to say for an N64. In my opinion, the shape of it, it's a bit of an odd cat. So there's, like, as soon as I saw your stuff, I was like, this dude's got to be a spray painter or something like that. So as a self-taught painter, mate, I'm sure there's a lot of trial and error, and you've made some decisions and everything and found some products that do and don't work for you. But holy moly, it's really
great. There's a lot of trial and error. A lot of trial and error. People think you just pick up a spray can and spray it and you're done. It's not. It's a science. It really is a science,
Anybody that paints their own, even Game Boy shells and stuff, it's really easy. I've done a little bit of airbrushing with some of my other hobbies, and it's actually really easy. I think people fail to realize to overdo it. Like, I have a 10-year-old daughter, and there's a corner of our backyard that's littered with spray cans. It's just what we do. We buy something, we pick it up. We do a lot of 3D printing at home, and so we're just like painting everything, and trying to teach my daughter how to kind of like because they're kind of their motor skills aren't quite there, and trying to teach her how to just depress the can and just little short sort of as opposed to look like you're trying to put a fire out with this can of purple paint and it all just runs down.
So you're not boring a hole into the plastic.
And look, it doesn't matter at what level you're at. That's always a skill that some people just kind of don't. The application of this semi-viscous liquid as an aerosol onto a surface, it just doesn't work for them.
Well, you can be the best technical painter, but if you don't prep whatever you're painting correctly, everything else is going to go wrong. It's the most important step.
You've got a picture here of it. Looks like 2 or 3 of the Mega Drive ones, like sitting on a dish rack. I assume they've been through your dishwasher or something, all in pieces. Obviously.
Hand washed, hand prepped.
Yeah. And that's it, isn't it? It's those kinds of things that getting all that contaminant off and removing 28 years of boogers and all that kind of crap. Yeah.
Grease and tack remover. That shell has got to be prepped and completely clean, because whatever you put on top of that could react with the smallest amount of grease or anything, and it will show.
Are you predominantly working with like original shells that you're having to clean up? So you're looking for shells that haven't been kicked under the bed with a pair of footy boots and have been in.
Oh no, they're the ones I do want.
Oh really? Why's that?
Because my theory is, if there's a pristine shell, it should stay pristine. If you've got a knackered old shell that could do with a facelift, then that's good, because you're giving it a new lease of life. Obviously some with cracks in it isn't gonna, it can work because I can fill those cracks and stuff, but you know, ones that have got a few little scratches and stuff and just need a new lease of life, they're the ones I look for.
How do you deal with those kind of like just a bit of a bruise or a groove along the side of a console where someone's throwing?
I'll fill it with plastic filler,
and then you're sanding and
smooth it all down.
Stuff, right?
Yeah, a lot of time and effort involved there.
And so you do, we were chatting a little bit before, you do this as your primary source of income. Now, this is correct. As an artist, you take old consoles and you make them look freaking like an M3 BMW, for
hopefully, but I'm a bit of a, I'm one of these artists that won't big up my own work. I'll just it's okay. I think that's every artist.
I can see now it's bloody gorgeous. There's no doubt about it. And like, I think it's such a broad range, because it can go from like I said before, this like M3 BMW N64, which the person that owns that must just stare at it all day long. But you've got a couple others like this. There's just a like one of the original purple top loaders, the snares, and I think you've just sort of just redone it with a fresh skin, and it's just got that same sort of pearlescent kind of cool glossiness to it. And even down here, I'm still looking around. There's a snares which is just shiny and clean, and the N64 that's just like a gorgeous matte black. So it's not always about flashy and shiny, but it is always about that pristine finish. Have you always been?
Indeed,
yeah. Tell us a little bit more about your I guess you're sort of growing up as young Rob, and have you said you were a gamer. Were you always like, did you have Nintendos growing up and or Mega Drives or that sort of stuff?
My first ever computer was a Commodore 64.
Hey man, same here, brother.
Yeah, I was born in 1981, so I've kind of lived through most of the the big sort of
ups and downs,
gaming scene up and coming. There was the video game crash and all that sort of thing, but my dad brought home a Commodore 64.
Wasn't such a crash.
I don't know exactly how old I was.
The UK didn't have such a crash because of that personal computer interest. It sort of floated along quite nicely, and the consoles came and went. But I mean, the UK has been and even now, like a lot of the podcasts you listen to, a lot of the YouTube you watch, the personal computer is big. It's still big. Sorry,
the Commodore 64 was amazing. I used to play games I think my favorite game was Nebulous. Have you ever heard of Nebulous?
Mate, we're talking about, so I was born in 73. When we had a 64, it would have been, early 80s, like 81, 82 when we got one.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of these games that I hope will get remade one day. It's basically a tower, and for Commodore 64 graphics, it was amazing because the tower would rotate, and you would go up sort of 2D style around this rotating tower, but there's like traps and things going up and down. And you were this weird kind of frog character with one eye, and you were just hopping over these traps to get to the top. And then you would move on to the next stage. But it just really blew my mind.
Clearly had an impact on you because you can remember quite a bit of detail.
Oh, yeah. And Clacks as well. That was a good one.
Played some later version of Clacks. And I think the Commodore 64, I have two smaller brothers. One was old enough to have a crack. The other one was just sort of like, mash the stick around. But we used to play a lot of like summer games and Impossible Mission. And what was that one I heard about the other day? Whizball and something. It was like a 2-player game, and you'd have to
Barbarian. Did you ever play Barbarian?
I think a buddy of mine had an Amiga 500, and we played Barbarian on that. Like that was the first time you did combos and finishing moves and
oh my god! Look, there's blood. Wow.
Yeah. It was
his head's come off.
Yeah, I know, it's so good, right? So you had console. So did you ever move into the consoles, or were you just
when I was 10, when I was 10, maybe a bit before. I would have been around 10 because the Mega Drive came out about 1990, 91 in the UK. And I got one for Christmas. And I wasn't aware I was getting one, but in my stocking at the end of my bed, when I woke up, there was Sonic the Hedgehog. And I thought, I haven't even got a Mega Drive. Like, why have I got this game? And I went downstairs and then saw this massive box sitting there wrapped up, and I thought, wow, that's got to be the Mega Drive. And it was. And I remember playing it all day, every day for the next few months.
Oh, that's golden. I just started playing Sonic myself, actually. I wasn't a big fan, but I have an EverDrive, and it has a good game. And it has save states, and I don't play it as fast as I can, and I just save state levels, so I'm at least because like you and I were talking before, we're parents and we're adults, and I don't have the concentration span to sit for 4 hours and go through a game, so chugging away. And I can see why people were into it. I can see why kids like, got to go fast, got to do this.
Sonic is basically my tester game when I do internal mods. It's my tester game to test the different hertz ratings, like 50 hertz, 60 hertz switching, because it goes slower and faster on Sonic, and the music speeds up and slows down. And I basically replay the first level over and over and see how fast I can do it. I think my record is 28 seconds from start to finish. And I'm not sure I can beat it. Someone else probably has, but it's a good level to do.
I guess when you're doing all those internal mods, you've got to prove that it works. And you see some of the Game Boy modders that have a particular save on a particular Pokemon game, and they can run around and see if there's any screen tearing, and they can hear the audio, and so they've got that baseline. It's interesting, isn't it? So then kind of like, I guess I really want to get on to talking about your work, but I do want to give I want to get some background of I mean, obviously you had a passion for gaming, and I think maybe like most of us, you go through that age of sort of growing up in girls and pubs and things fall away, and was that something that happened to you, or were you kind of gaming all the time?
I always had a console. I think when I got the Xbox 360, that was around the time, I can't even remember what year it was, but that was the sort of time when I not went off gaming, but didn't do it as much because friends were always out and, come out and come down the park and illegally drink beer and that sort of thing. And, that was the time when my head got turned a bit, but I'd always sort of play it now and then when I was home alone. But when I then got into modding and stuff, because I started the internal modding first before I went into painting and stuff.
Sure. And what would have been?
What
would have been your sort of bread and butter when you first started modding?
Xbox 360s.
Right. What's
repairing them.
Yeah, right.
More repairing them, really. Like the disk drives and stuff like that. I never used to touch the red light of death thing because it could never really be repaired. People were like overheating their systems and sticking hair dryers on the CPU and all that stupid stuff, but they would always come back to you. That would never be a lasting fix. So I was more sort of disk drives, really, because lasers failing and that sort of thing.
What was the deal? Were they getting like solder breaking away or something and trying to reflow?
Yeah, underneath the main chips. They started using leadless solder. So basically it melts when it goes wrong, it can't sort of rejoin itself. Whereas leaded solder, when it heats up, it can stay like balled. But leadless solder, when it goes wrong, it stays cracked. And if there's a minutest little crack in that solder point, the whole system's buggered. So the only way to really repair it would be to reball it, where you take the big chips off, put tiny solder balls underneath. You need like specialist equipment that's thousands of pounds. And obviously I couldn't afford that. So
I was watching someone a little while ago on YouTube. I can't remember who the dude was, just because you end up in these little rabbit holes and you get the algorithm sort of starts feeding you this random stuff. And this guy was like cruising through like, I want to say like Pakistan or somewhere, maybe Dubai, or I don't want to sound racist, but it just felt one of those sort of like Middle Easty kind of that part of Asia. And he was going through these places that just had walls and walls of like, and this was only in the last 18 months to 2 years, walls and walls of like whatever the Xbox was and the PlayStation and stuff. And they had these rigs that were doing this sort of stuff, and there was just crap everywhere. It was like, if you took your car to that mechanic, you'd be like, I'm not leaving my car here. But these dudes were like just ripping into it. And I was just amazed.
If you've got the equipment, you can fix one in about half an hour, start to finish. And if that earns you 30 quid, £30 for half an hour's work, it's not too bad.
Unreal. So then so you start on sort of repairing Xboxes, and what was the kind of the arc between, I guess let's just step forward a bit. What's the sort of mods that you're doing to consoles today? Like if I said to you, dude, let's pick the N64. Here's my N64. I know I can get adapters. I know I can buy this cable. Hyper can do this, blah, 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 blah. I know I can do that, but I can afford just to have it all done and look really sweet as well as be internally awesome. What's the sort of work that you're going to do to my N64?
Well, the N64 is one of the more complicated ones.
As an example, I've got Mega Drive, SNES, GameCube, PS1s, but I guess I've just seen a really sexy M3, and it's all I can think about now is that N64. So, for example, what's the sort of work you'd be doing?
Yeah, well, basically, I focus more now on improving the older consoles visuals, like to make them display better on HD televisions, make the sound quality better. So with the N64, I regularly do what's called an RGB mod, because the N64 was never from factory capable of doing RGB, apart from a select, I think, French model that could do it, and a Japanese, I think, variant, but they're really, really rare. So basically, Nintendo cut back and took that out of it to make them cheaper. So I kind of restore the RGB to get a better picture quality.
So we're talking about using like component over composite.
Basically component is very similar to RGB. It's just a different cable. And then you can feed the RGB signal into like an HD adapter, like the RetroTink products, like an upscaler. And then it displays on the HD television and looks amazing.
And does it come out does it still, look, there's a few different YouTube channels I watch of people that cover a lot of that sort of stuff. Pardon me. And like these dudes are using oscilloscopes and all sorts of rando testing delay and things with Bluetooth controllers and everything.
Lag,
and they really, really, really do go into it. And things like the Retro Tink and some of the mods are coming out today. If it works, and
is that Retro RGB?
That's the guy, yeah. And
he's really good.
He's just such a humble guy, and I think he acts like, I'm just some guy that has a thing. I know a thing or two, but he really is quite the jet when it comes to understanding what people are trying to do with these mods and how close they got. And he has a really great way of sort of saying, well, good try, but you kind of missed this, or this is bloody amazing. You need to have this. If you want to spend $700 on a cable, this is the cable for you, kind of stuff, you know.
What I like about it is it depends what your needs are. You know, if you're a top gamer or you do it professionally, then you will need as little lag as possible, like speed running and stuff like that. So you will want the best equipment. But if you're just playing it casually and, you know, now and then, you don't need to spend all that money. And that's what I like about him. He's like, he's not saying you must buy this. He's saying, look, this is available.
Yeah.
Like you say, if you have got that money spare, then great, do it. But it's not 100% necessary, you know?
It was even, I read a review he did of like the 8-bit controllers. I've got a bunch of the Bluetooth ones because I came from emulation, and
I use them as well.
Yeah, and I was sort of like, I'm an R-ing whether I should buy the adapters for the Mega Drive and the SNES. And I know some people that said they're great, they're fine, and I really like the controls. I've got 2 of the M30s, 2 of the SNES version
is amazing.
Yeah, it just feels so fantastic. 2 of the I can't remember what the SNES ones are called. And then I've got
SN30.
I've got 2 of the SN30s and 1 of the SN30 Pros with the dual analogs. And
that's what I use for the Switch.
Yeah. I think in those situations they're really good. But then looking at one of his sort of articles, you know, he was measuring the Bluetooth versus 2.4, and the Bluetooth had this kind of varying in delay.
Yeah, Bluetooth is always more laggy.
Anywhere from 12 to 60 milliseconds. But then the 2.4 was just like pretty much a solid 15.
Yeah,
Super
I always
consistent.
buy 2.4 gigahertz. I never have Bluetooth anymore.
So I'm still sort of, if I can pick up the 2.4 versions, comes with the dongle and stuff, but things like that.
But to be honest, for the Switch, I actually use wired. I use a wired SN30 Pro because then there's USB zero lag. Yeah, because I sit quite close to the telly anyway, and I like that more retro feel of plugging something in,
being leashed,
that's connected. The only problem is my kids then come running in and trip over the wire, and the switch goes flying, and
goodness,
I have to make sure they're either in bed or at their mum's. You know.
Yeah. Fair enough. And so I guess there's other mods you would do, maybe like power cleanup and regulation, and
I do.
What else would you put in my N64?
Restoration. So I'll replace the capacitors, because they're old now, and if they burst, especially the N64 ones, they're surface mounted, so they've got electrolyte in them. So if they pop and fail, the electrolyte will leak out and corrode the motherboard. So it's really important to change those. So I can change all those and just basically do a whole refurb on the board to bring it up to as new as possible again, you know, so it will last many more years.
The cap thing seems to be pretty common amongst any gaming unit that's 15 to 25 years old.
It's so important.
Like I know a few people that, you know, that do Game Boy rebuilds, and a lot of times these days, even GBAs, they're recapping GBAs, and it seems to be super duper important.
And also not just replacing like for like. You can, depending on the system, you can actually add in a higher or lower capacitance, and it'll actually improve a picture quality or a sound quality. So there's a lot of experimentation going on to improve what they were from standard, just by replacing capacitors. and using different types of capacitors as well, because there's many different types. I won't get down into that because that is a big rabbit hole. But yeah, I like to restore as well as mod. So I get a lot of people send me, I've got this old Super Nintendo or Mega Drive. It's a bit old and battered. Can you bring it up to new again? So instead of customizing it, I'll still paint it and everything and finish it, but to make it look brand new again,
original, gorgeous.
And also inside replace all the capacitors, replace the voltage regulator, which is very important, all that sort of thing, just to liven it up again.
I just so while you were talking, I just think about, because I tinker, like I did the X Station on my PS1, and
I've just done one of those.
I solder here and there some surface mount stuff for a living, and my eyes aren't what they used to be. Like I used to do a lot of stuff with drones, and I was soldering a lot, and my career sort of been bench work, and that was pretty challenging, lifting pins around the chip and things like that, and putting the actual board in is not too bad because it's so beautifully designed. You just kind of like drop it on, and everything just sort of, as long as you get
like
over
the ribbon, hasn't it? That
and
all
you
the
just,
points.
and you just sort of flow it a couple of times, and it tends to work pretty well. But I was sort of thinking about that, and then I discovered that because it's a PAL PS1. I couldn't play any NTSC games, which didn't really matter too much, but I was still like, sometimes you just want that. Like I've come this far, I'd like to have it sorted. And so it's to do with a lot of times to do with the, like you said, the clock speed.
The hertz rate, 50, 60 hertz.
And I found, like, which I can't get hold of, like a little board that automatically detects and switches depending on what the media.
Is that the dual frequency oscillator?
Yeah. What do you know about that? Because is it apart from that, there's also like an issue with the I'd have to change my cable as well, because it's like it's like black and white and kind of like this weird, like as if I'm looking at my car through a thunderstorm. But I can resolve the cable issue, but the clock frequency issue,
it's this is where it gets complicated. Basically, if you're playing a PAL system and you're using like an AV cable or a composite cable, if you're then switching into 60 hertz, the 60 hertz can't register those colors, so you need an RGB cable or a component cable that can take that extra information through, and also the 50 hertz runs slower, so to play NTSC games in 60 hertz is better because they're basically running at the speed they were designed to run at, because all games were designed to run at 60 hertz, because most of them are designed in Japan, which is where 60 hertz is as well. And then when they came over to UK, Australia, etc., our power was 50 hertz, so they had to slow the games down, like I was saying about Sonic the Hedgehog on the Mega Drive. I always thought it was that's how it was, and then when I grew up and played it in 60 hertz, I was like, oh my god, this game is really, really quick, and it's amazing that it became a new game, because of the speed of it and the sound sped up, and it was just amazing to me, But with the mods and stuff, that's what I try and do is to allow you to play them how they were supposed to be played,
A prime example of that different speeds is Tetris on the NES. Like I can remember kind of fiddling around with some emulation. So my wife and I played with Tetris, and even when I put on a particular ROM, I've got a NES and it's only there for a Tetris cart. That's all I use it for. And even like on the emulation, she was like, that sounds really fast. I didn't really know what was going on. And then I realized it was like a ROM from a different part of the world.
And it's only the first stage.
That's right. My brain's already broken because it's Tetris.
Have you played Tetris Effect?
No, not yet.
That is incredible.
No, I haven't. My wife and I.
That's the trip, actually.
That's the one on like the PlayStation with VR as well.
You can have VR. I've not played in VR, but it's a really good. The music is amazing. Whatever you touch or do, the music reacts reacts to what you're pressing and stuff.
I think
it's really
it's
interactive.
like dolphins jumping in the background and all sorts. I think I'd find
really
that
trippy.
Yeah. Well, we've got VR and I have been tempted. My wife and I played a lot of like Tetris. I think it's called Tetris Party on the Wii. And over the last probably 18 months, she's become quite the I will have my runs, but sometimes she just rips it. And there's nothing more frustrating when the student becomes the master. It's quite difficult to deal with. But then it's
one of those games that when you get into the flow and you're zoned in, it's so satisfying. It really is. And you're really focused 100% into it, and nothing else around you exists except you and Tetris. I think that's the hook of Tetris,
I tend to play it like sort of later in the evening, like on a Saturday night, 8:30. Everybody's sort of doing their thing because my wife and daughter, we've all got devices, and I've got a nice 29-inch Sony Trinitron, and I will put it on here. I'll turn the music off because that drives me bonkers. It's like some sort of torture. I just put like a podcast.
That's why you need Tetris effects.
Yeah, probably put a podcast or some music on, and just sort of the beauty of what I really like about Tetris, you can really crank it up and try and like cook your brain, start on a higher level, or you can just roll it back and just have a good old time and just just like doing a jigsaw puzzle,
Yeah, you can decide if you want the pressure or not.
Has anybody got you to do a Tetris themed console of any sort?
I did a Tetris themed Game Boy where if you scroll on the Instagram, it was a while ago now, but you'll probably be able to find it.
In there
and it's got this Russian what's the big
the Kremlin
palace thing called? It's got the Kremlin on it and sort of Tetris blocks down it, and the screen was custom made as well. So it's a really, I enjoyed doing that, but no, apart from that, no one's really come to me for anything Tetrisy, which is a bit strange. But
a Tetris Nintendo, like a NES, would be pretty, because you got a lot of room to really.
Colors there as well.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm looking through your stuff here. I'm lucky. I'm lucky that shipping from the UK is crazy, because even just shells. Something I'm pretty excited about is I've got a SNES that is real beat up. Really beat up, like it's literally had a few of its posts busted. It still works.
Quite common.
I don't understand, like it's literally, I can just pick it up and it just opens up. Like the post, one of the corners has been, it looks like the Titanic is it's just been punched out. I'm like, well, were they packing it up and dropped it, or did it just, I don't understand how it gets that.
Well, unfortunately with SNES, the plastic becomes very brittle over time, and it becomes yellowed, and I think they used a chemical in the plastic called bromine, and when it's basically put in the dark for too long, it loses its strength, and I think bromine is like a fire retardant chemical, and when it gets brittle, the slightest little knock will just send bits of it flying. So you can reverse it with a special process, but I don't think it's 100% lasting. You'd have to do it again at some point.
That makes more sense.
It's unfortunate. There's so many smashed up SNES shells out there.
Well, what I'm excited about is I picked this one up for like maybe 40, $50 Australian, which is really good. I was actually just looking for a couple of extra controllers, and I got two controllers. I didn't have a video cable. I didn't have a power cable, and she's like, I think it works. I've just had it for so long, but like I don't know. And for $40, it was worth
it. Clean out the cartridge slot.
Yeah, for $40, it was worth a shot, and just for the controllers, because people asking, they were a bit yellow, but people are asking sort of $25 per controller these days. I was like, the controls work.
Yeah, prices of Super Nintendo stuff has shot up. Really has.
So I got it, and I realized like it still works. This is great. So now I went to the R.G.B. They're doing the clear shells, and I've got the shell for that on order. I think they're just waiting for kind of like to finish the numbers, but He's been putting up a bunch of stuff like here's the prototype, looking pretty good. Man, I'd like it won't get played, but it's just
they do look nice.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I'm going to put it. Like probably next to my bed for at least a couple of weeks. It should look pretty great. So it's a good use of like a cheap one because I mean it's going to be a sort of, I guess once it's done,
decent plastic, won't it? I think it's ABS. So it won't be a cheap Chinese knockoff stuff.
I think there's is there maybe like a Mega Drive here in your Insta somewhere that you've done?
Yeah, there's one of those being made. I think there's Sega Saturn ones, Dreamcast ones, either available now or being made. Yeah, there's a lot of them now.
What's your least favorite console to work on, Rob?
Probably Sega Saturn.
Is that just because they're kind of a bit rarer? You don't want to mess it up?
No, just because they're so finicky. There's so many things that can go wrong with them, and there's no real way of determining the issue. You know, you could think the issue is to do with the capacitors because it's not displaying a picture, and then you're tracing it all the way back, and you think, oh, okay, the main chip is gone, or it's not that, it's actually the RAM. There's so many things that can go wrong with a Sega Saturn. They were poorly designed. They're great consoles when they work, but they're so frustrating, and there's so little information, like definite information online that, oh, you've got this problem that's related to that, or, you know, with other consoles, it's like, oh, you're having a graphics issue, it's this, you know, and they can pinpoint it straight away. With the Sega Saturn, it's so complex in its design that it's just so frustrating, you know. So if I do get Saturns in, I make sure they're working or have a very simple issue to fix.
Right. Yeah. They're a funny sort of spot in the timeline of, I guess, retro gaming, because I think they might not even be retro yet, you know, because they were kind of almost on the tail end of that was the the PlayStation 1 was kind of just around the corner. So as a board, like as a electronic device, it would have been fairly high tech compared to a Super Nintendo. And
massively.
Yeah, and I guess
it was the start of the sort of 3D realm, wasn't it? Really.
I think the only reason I felt I needed one was like to play the original Panzer Dragoon, but I could never afford a copy of Panzer Dragoon because it would probably cost as much as the Saturn itself. But I have seen
Saturns are expensive.
Yeah, I have seen the there's an ODE that goes into, I keep forgetting the name of it. It's the same.
Mode?
Yes, that's it. It'll go into either a Dreamcast or a Saturn. And I'm like, if I could pick up a Saturn for sort of like, you know, a garage sale, then it would get a mode. I'd be up for that. Dreamcast is on my list too, but again, you know, you won't pick up a working Dreamcast in this country for $300. I think is probably anybody knows what they're doing. Like Facebook,
again,
Facebook
all the lasers are dying.
Well, I'm okay with that, but I'm going to stick an ODE in it. That was the beauty of the GameCube, the GC loader. I mean, you just kind of like, it's the poor man's mod. You just kind of unscrew the whole lot, put it in like a Faraday bag, and it's now on ice for prosperity, and I can just enjoy the GameCube.
I love the GC loader. It's a good mod.
If you can get one, the kind of like they come out in batches, and you got to scruff one as quick as you can.
Yeah, you can pick them up on places like AliExpress, but whether they're the real deal or just a cheap copy, you never really know. So
I would never do that. I would never just risk, because they're not that much cheaper, and it might just be as simple as it'll never get a firmware update, and you'll see
you have to wait 10 years to receive it.
And
if you get it at all.
And there's that too. So what's your
It's probably not too bad for where you are, because if you're in Australia, you might get it a bit quicker. I don't know how that works, but in the UK, we have to wait about 4 or 5 weeks.
It's about right from AliExpress. If you just pay the $7 shipping or whatever, then it's usually around about this. Almost everything outside this country is 3 to 4 weeks, like from the UK, unless someone sends it with intent. It's about 4 weeks. It's same from the US. Yeah. So what's your favorite console to mod these days?
Well, I seem to do N64 the most.
Right. We're sort of hitting that generation, aren't we, of like gamers seem to be like the N64 seems to be the most talked about. The prices are going a bit silly.
It's like a fashion.
I think those people are now old enough to have a bit of money, and COVID's done things to people's heads, and they'll pay silly amounts of money for things and all that sort of business. So I guess maybe that they're coming out of the woodworks and so on.
Yeah, I think I get the most satisfaction from restoring and modifying a Mega Drive, because that was my first proper console. I have that affinity to it. And to see them restored and brought back to life gives me more satisfaction than anything else.
Do you I want to talk a little bit more about the painting. I mean, some of that's not just flat colors. You know, you're doing a little bit of artwork and stuff here and there. Like, I want to talk about the Zelda GameCube. Now, for me to describe it,
it's one of my popular ones. That one. It's
kind of like a bronze color, I guess, is the best way. A base bronze. I like to do a bit of weathering and stuff myself. So, Joseph Tompkins, I don't know, he's done some Beskar shells, laser etching, like a pocket, and also like so he did the pocket, and then I harassed him for the DMG. You can see it there.
Okay, yeah.
And it's sort of like
nice.
I just do some really simple weathering and stuff from my kind of like Gundam days, you know, and all I do is just kind of like coat it and then just do a bit of a it's kind of like a thinned out enamel.
Like a wash.
Yeah, like a wash, exactly. And you sort of give it a bit of time, and it's a bit of I'll wipe a bunch off and then go, oh, that's too much, and see where it falls and that sort of stuff. So it's got that kind of look to it, you know. But it stands in the middle. It stands in this sort of realm between it's a brand new thing, but it's also been sitting somewhere slowly decaying. And that's
like a relic.
Yeah, like a relic, and that's you, right? You that's all your work. Maybe
that's kind of the look I was going for. Like it was something that Indiana Jones would find in a temple or something, sitting. You know, in the first Indiana Jones where he goes
the bag of sand.
That sort of thing that you would find. So it's got that sort of a old bronzy sort of look to it. But also with the gloss finish, it says actually this is actually new, but it's old as well. Something you would find in a Zelda game.
So there's obviously a few different I guess sort of I want to get to the point where like you do a lot of commissions and you do a lot of work for people, and so when someone comes to you and says I've got this idea like this, I want my GameCube to look like it's been buried underground for 100 years. What's the kind of process for you when you get it? So I hand you my GameCube, and I'll
bury it in the garden.
Come back in 100 years.
Up in a week, send it back.
And say, I don't know, somewhere depending on what you've got on, in somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks, you're going to hand me back this. What's the process?
It depends. I have a schedule, so I can only take on a certain amount of personal orders a month.
To reiterate, this is all you do, right? As a living now, this is what you do.
Yep. And so I regularly repeat what's on my Etsy shop. They're always repeated designs. They're my personal designs that I sell. But obviously people want something of their own. They come to me with their own design, but I can only take on a certain amount of those a month because they do take time to make, and I have to fit it into my schedule. So as we stand right now, my next availability for a personal request is February next year.
Wow.
So I'm booked up to that point at the minute. So people, if they wanted to book, say, February, March, they would have to leave a deposit to save that space and to cover my materials. And then once the work is done, they would then pay the other half. And then they get it.
So I'm just sort of flicking through your Etsy at the moment. So what I see here is literally sitting, let's say, on your shelf, available, good to go. So this gorgeous purple kind of Lamborghini metallic looking PlayStation 1 is sitting there right now in your house on your shelf for me to buy, if that were the case.
I don't have anything available right now. I've got a Sega Saturn that's very close to completion,
right?
That will be for sale. So every now and then I'll make a one-off piece,
right,
that won't be repeated,
right,
and I will obviously let that be known in the description wherever it's available.
Yeah,
and they sell for a bit more because they're one-offs. But my stuff on Etsy, because it gets repeated over and over, they are a little bit cheaper.
Yeah. That's what I'm looking at now, like your controllers and sort of console like mods, as in like, you know, there's a RGB mod service here for the N64 and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that
people can sort of buy those alongside their purchase of the console.
Yeah,
so
that Zelda GameCube is, according to your Etsy, it's sitting there like it says 4 people have it in their basket.
Yeah, I wish they'd click buy.
Yeah, I bet. What's probably like is, I imagine you probably do a lot of controllers and move a lot of controllers through, because I guess they're a little bit more affordable for most people, and it's a way to kind of just personalize your experience without having a whole console. You can, what I mean? Yeah.
I'm currently doing a simple N64 controller for someone. She just wants like a pearl pink, and I've actually got one up for sale, but she wants a baby pink,
right?
Which is a lot lighter. So I'm getting the paint mixed up for that, and I'm doing a Bloodborne PS5 controller for someone at the moment as well. They've sent over this specific images that they want used on it, so it takes a lot more time to sort of run those images through Photoshop and print them out, that sort of thing, apply them. It's a much more time consuming process because you're working to specifics. So that's why they cost a bit more as well.
Working to expectations, I think, is more to the point.
Indeed, yeah.
How do you get the so you're talking about like an image, let's say like an image of Link, on the controller. I've seen a few things like that here. I don't know how much you want to give away, but how do you get those images onto the
Sometimes they're hand painted,
right?
Other times I use water decals. So I'll print them out myself and apply them, but they go underneath the clear coat, so the clear coat goes over the top of them, and you sort of bury them basically, so they look like part of the paintwork. And other times I'll actually physically hand paint a design. Like have you seen the Banjo-Kazooie N64?
I'm looking at that one now with all the jigsaw puzzles pieces.
That's hand painted.
Oh man, that's insane.
The banjo, the logo, and the little jiggy character, they're hand painted.
You can truly see your animation background right there, or what were you doing for the books, the illustration. Sorry. Just touching on the water slide stuff, I'm pretty familiar from like Gundam and a bit of aviation model making with water slides, and I thought no worries, and I had plans to make a Game Boy for my daughter, and I end up changing. I did like a splatter shell, but I got some of the water slide paper and kind of read about it and stuff, and so you basically just turn your printer up and you put it through, and then you clear coat it, and then you put it on, and all that part went really well. 2 things I learned. Firstly, your home printer does not print white.
Nope.
So I pulled it off the back paper, and I was like, "Oh man!" Because
I can't see it anymore.
I was actually trying to do like a redo of a Hello Kitty pocket. So I had Dave, Nintendo DIY. He just had a shell, and he's like, "I'll paint the inside for you and send it to you with some other stuff that's coming over." And then I was like, "Oh," and I took the Hello Kitty thing off, like the decal. Also, when you buy decals, like in sheets for models, they're kind of pre-cut mostly. And you sort of just take it off and you put it on. Everything's sort of, and then you can use like some sort of materials for like thinning it, and sort of it takes away what's left of that kind of outer edge away from the image. And I was like, all right, I can probably do this. So once I worked out the white doesn't print, I bought some white backed. And then it was like, then the challenge was, all right, now
trimming the white away,
because now I've got this cat with whiskers. How the hell? I thought, you know what, let's just make a compromise.
That's where the hand paint comes in.
So I went back to the just clear backs. I was like, this can still work because it is a redo. It's not a replica. And I put it on and I was pretty happy with the way everything sat. But just looking at the face of the Game Boy, it was quite obvious that the decal was above the plastic.
Yeah.
Quite obvious. And I was like, if I knew what I was doing, I could probably put a bunch of coats on this. And like you said, sort of bury it. But I do think that the stuff I'm using is a really thick water slide, more designed for like, people use it for like cups and flasks and
almost
art.
More vinyl.
Correct. So I'd be really interested. I know James He Plays has done a lot with his the original Bayside DMGs. They're kind of like I can't remember the name of the show. I feel terrible now. It's like a American sort of like 80s high school show. And you know, how that's sort of like that 90s and 80s sort of splotchy.
Yeah, like Saved by the Bell.
Yeah, that's it. Saved by the Bell. Sorry, buddy, if you're listening. And I guess in that sort of situation, because he's a graphic artist, I believe, you know, he knew what he was doing, and it was sort of there was multiple, so it's sort of once he did what he had to do, it all kind of worked. But this was just a little cat's face and a love heart, and it stuck out like tits on a bull, and I had to just walk away. So what did I do? What did I do wrong?
You've got to find the right paper that works for you for a start. There's so many different thicknesses. There's different qualities. I think I went through about 10 different types of paper before I found what worked for me. And it's just practice, really. You know, you've got to spend money to make money in anything you do, and
or to have a good time.
You know, if you want something to look right, you can't just get it and do it and hope it looks perfect. You have to expect things to go wrong and know how to fix them. And when I found the paper that worked for me, I would print out the outline of the design, and I would make a stencil, and I would paint the whole area white, and then I would lay the decal over that.
Right.
So then the whites that you're losing would be replaced, and the colors would be brighter. And then because I would then get rid of the overspray with some isopropyl alcohol. Really gently. Right. So then it sits just nicely. Yeah. And then you can clear coat over it.
Because that was the other thing, and especially on the shell I'd used was it was originally a clear shell, a Game Boy Pocket. They've been painted from the inside, so light would still come through. And so any water slide I put on it was sort of translucent. It was almost like you had to kind
faded.
You had to print like 2 or 3 and kind of lay them on top of each other. But also think that I missed a fundamental step. There's a few people who have sort of spoken on YouTube about that you change a bunch of settings in your printer because it wants to just go, you know, like normal copy papers, like it's pretty absorbent. You print like this. And I think that I missed a step where you got to kind of like crank up the ink flow, so to speak.
Yeah, you definitely need a good printer. I use a laser printer.
Right.
The inkjets can work, but they need a lot more. Basically, when the decal's printed, you need to seal it. And that's another thing. I've gone through so many different sealants to find one that doesn't react with the clear coat that goes on top of it.
Right.
Because there's been when I first started testing it all out, I would lay it on, and then I would put the clear coat over the top, and then it would just crease and crinkle up.
Oh my god!
So the whole piece was ruined then. Start again. That's what I mean by trial and error. You know, I learned from that. So then I tried something different, and until I found the materials that work for me. So it's it's
Yeah,
very frustrating, but
yeah.
you know,
A lot of the sort of the journey trying to work out how that works, and I would like to follow this up, because I mean, like, once I sort of saw it, and also having like seen what water slides do to like a plastic model of a Gundam, and you start sort of like doing like a clear coat and then your water slides and a bit of weathering, and it changed everything. I'm like, man, if someone come up and said, I want a Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls GBA, it's like, piece of cake, red shell, 23, the Bulls, there you go. Like it's the process pretty simple. But as I was watching stuff, I found myself watching a lot of videos on like people that restore or modify like Hot Wheels or Matchbox cars. You know, these guys that have like custom decals, flames, and whatever they wanted. And I was like, that's it. So
yeah,
it's
the whole process of designing the decal as well before it's even printed out. You know, you've got to have the skills with Photoshop and all that sort of thing, and graphic design elements. So it's not as simple. You can't just buy the decal. You've got to create it yourself as well.
Yeah. I was using
actually get the images and change.
I was using GIMP, which is like a free Photoshop. And for someone like me, that's kind of like, I'm not very good with layers. I'm not very good. And I found myself getting to those points where I'm like, Jesus, how do I go back 27 steps, because I've just made this so much worse.
How do I merge this with that?
And why do I grab this and then the whole everything else moves? Oh, this is driving me.
It's disappeared. Oh my god! I've just spent 2 hours on this and it's gone.
I've currently got a really interesting project on the moment with the water slides. A guy at work restores like old radios, like you would have had in your living, like like I think the one he's got at the moment is like
Tannoy.
a 1933. It's it's like as big as a bit bigger than a normal toaster, and in the front is a glass. And I've got a kind of like a print here. I do have a couple, but I won't pull that around. But basically, this is kind of, you can see there. That's what it sort of looks like. And the glass is about that size, about A4 long and about 2.5 inches high. It's broken. He's cracked it. And so what I'm doing is, you can see on that image, like down the side there, all the stuff was just painted from behind. And this is all peeled away with heat and stuff. So I'm basically going through with GIMP and just cutting little sections and just putting them in, and just basically and just rebuilding the image. And then the plan is to then print the water slide in reverse as a negative, and then slap it on the back of the glass. And it'll look kind of sketchy because the thing's like 80 years old. And so that's kind of fun. That'll be fun. I don't care about the surface because it'll be behind the glass. And even when you look
at back it with white as well.
Well, when you look at the original one, which I've got for reference, on the back, like they must have done something similar, but then they've actually hand painted, like where it was blue, they've gone along with paint and gone blah, blah, blah. And where it was red, just to kind of like really, like we said, to highlight. And then it's got this little needle that kind of glows and moves along behind it. So nothing to do with retro gaming, but I'm pretty excited that that's something that maybe I can use some of this skill, some of this learning for. But you find ways, don't you? I think it would be heartbreaking for you to get to that point. There are points where you're like, damn it, I thought this was going to work and I've just wasted umpteen hours.
Yeah. It's when you get to the point of actually finishing and you clear coat, you've got to be so careful, because when I was saying before about being a science, if you clear coat on a if you clear coat on a damp day or a cold day, and you spray too fast or too much or too little, that clear coat's going to wrinkle, it's going to crack, it's going to react to everything and just ruin the whole piece. So you've got to be really careful what days you do it on.
The humidity or the
it's
cold
expensive
weather.
stuff as well. It goes hard very quickly. So you have to mix up a certain amount. So if you basically, I make sure I've got at least 4 or 5 consoles ready to clear coat, so I can use everything I've mixed.
Yep.
You know, because otherwise you're just losing money because it's expensive stuff.
Yeah.
You know, people are always worried about oh, will it come off in my hands? And I'm like, no. Does car paint come off in your hands? It's exactly the same material. You know, will it scratch? Well, it will if you mistreat it. Same with anything, you know. It's a high-end product. You've got to treat it with respect.
Yeah, I was talking to the guys from Yesterday's Tech, they Australian-based couple, and Kelsey does a lot of the art and has worked with Bosca pens and things like that. Some absolutely, I've got a shell that I
use Posca pens every now and then.
Yeah, and they went through that process of her doing 20 hours, 30 hours of the art, and then going, okay, let's see what this clear coat does to it. And just having it crack and break and not be suitable. And that's an artist.
The best thing is to spray it so lightly, just dust it to begin with. So at least you've got a tiny layer on there, let that dry, and then do another dusting and just dust it layer after layer. If you just whack it on, it will just react. You've got to that's the thing that takes time is the drying times between layers, between coats,
I've always been so impatient when it comes to that stuff. I have for example, I have this this wireless GameCube control, so it's like a Wavebird knockoff. And it was like a gaudy bright orange. It was pretty disgusting, and it had that sort of weird slimy feel. And I just opened it up and did like a matte black and a matte purple, but you can see where it sort of rambles. I was like, crack it open in the morning, paint it at lunchtime. I want to play it after dinner that night. And it's not realistic, man. You got to take your time. I did the second one. I kind of had it in the shed. I was like, if I put it in the shed, I got to walk all the way to the shed to fiddle with it. So I painted it out there, and every 3 or 4 hours, another quick coat, and just gave it 3 or 4 days to do its own thing.
Yeah. The clear coat takes 2 to 3 days to fully cure and dry properly before you can start buffing it, sanding it, all that sort of thing. Clear coat from a can that you buy in DIY shops or whatever, it's not proper clear coat. It's more lacquer.
It's my weapon of choice because I just got to. Because this was originally like a gloss, I just wanted it to be a matte. I mean,
it'll protect it, but it won't protect it from handling, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it never dries fully. It always stays a bit mushy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Going back to some of these beautiful builds that you've done, I guess that's an aspect. The polishing, the finishing. What sort of time is going into? We can look at this Yoshi N64 or my M3 N64. What's the time that stage before you fully assemble it? What sort of hours are you talking?
Once the clear coat is dried, I'll then hand sand it through different gradients of wet dry paper. So I'll start with like a 2000 and work up to about an 8000. So you've got a natural shine on it, and then I will get my buffing. I think it's a Makita. No, it's a Milwaukee. It's a Milwaukee hand buffing, and then I'll go through different sponge gradients with my buffing cream, and then go over that just like you would a car. Basically, it's the same process but on a small scale.
You've there's a bit of PS5 stuff in there. How have you found the PS5 to work with as far as controllers?
It's nice.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
The shells just pop off.
Yeah,
the side panels just pop off, so you've not really got to touch the actual console. So people can just send their plates to you, or fins, whatever you want to call them, on the side panels. And they can still keep their console running because you don't need the side panels on. So they'll send the panels to me. I'll paint them whatever and send them back. So they're nice.
And how about the controllers to open up and put back together? I mean, I've opened up a couple of wireless, I bought a wireless controller for my PS2, obviously not legit, but I wanted to paint that, and I kind of opened it up, and it was like an old watch. It kind of went boing, and all these bits and strings were everywhere, and I was like, oh no, I just
there's definitely a process to opening them.
So the PS5 ones,
they're very reminiscent of the PS4,
right?
To be honest, they're not too dissimilar. There's just a certain process to opening them that you just have to get used to.
Once you know where it's going to pop out, you're like, you put your hand there and kind of catch it, or whatever the process.
I use a lot of ice trays, so I put the parts in the order they came out.
That's a good idea.
Tray. Then you can work back, so you know that screws for that hole. Or some people actually draw it out on a piece of paper, and they loosely draw where the screws go and whatever. But once you've done it 2 or 3 times, you can just know where they are anyway.
I pull a lot of stuff apart at work like that, big kind of radios, and like and I'm always like, I need on my bench, if the unit I'm playing with is like 12 inches by 6 inches, I need the same amount of space next to me, and I put the screws down right next to it. It might be slightly smaller. I think it reminds me of like the original Tomb Raider movie, and she finds the puzzle box, and he's like, and he gets the screw, and he goes, such and such screw to quadrant blah blah, and he's doing, and she just gets a hammer and just whacks it and just
screw this.
Let me in. And I was thinking, that's okay, if you just want to open it once, that's going to work. That's great.
A lot of people are really afraid of the GameCube, opening up the GameCube, because there's a lot of screws and layers in there.
There is,
but to be honest, most of the screws are the same type. So it doesn't really matter. It's only when you get down to like the disk drive and taking that apart that the screws get a lot smaller. But because it's such a dense piece of electronics, because it's all crammed into a small little cube, a lot of people are afraid to do it. But again, once you've done it 2 or 3 times, it's just like, like you've always been doing it your whole life. Well, just don't be afraid.
I watched a couple of the videos on the GC loader, and then I actually I had to buy the Nintendo screw bit to get those, because they're and I was waiting for my daughter to finish her tennis lesson, and I did the GC loader mod in the passenger seat of my car in about 35 minutes. So it's really, like you said, you sort of just lift the top off, and then you just start pulling screws.
The GC loader one's easy, because you don't really even have to disassemble the whole thing. You're just taking the first layer off, really.
And just pull the whole.
But when
the drive
do
and
it
bridge
and,
thing out
and spray paint, I have to take everything out, because I don't. So I've just got the plastic, So I have to fully disassemble everything, fully clean everything inside as well. So I'm literally, everything is in bits. There's not one thing that stays together. So when you first do that, it's like, oh god, like what was I doing here again? So I've got loads of drawers that you would keep screws and stuff in your garage or something, and they're all labeled for different parts of each console. So I've got loads of spares and everything like that. So I just have to be super organized, because I'm dealing with so many different consoles and parts and everything.
For sure.
It could get out of control. So that's a challenge in itself.
Have you done any builds where you're like, all right, I just got to put something on the shop, so what have I got kicking around? Or, I'm going to pull out this N64 shell, I'm going to just do a good job on it. And you're done, and you're about to list it, and you're like, I really actually don't want to let this one go. Do you ever have those moments?
Well, a lot of people ask me, like, oh, what customs do you have? You do all this stuff. What have you done for yourself? And the honest answer is nothing. I don't have any.
Right.
Because I'm very indecisive. So all my personal consoles, apart from my son's, I did him a Luigi's Mansion GameCube for his birthday.
Oh yeah.
Because he's really into Luigi's Mansion. So I did him one of those, which he loves. He still plays. But me personally, I don't have any custom work. I'm almost like a tattoo artist with no tattoos. It's, I would like them, but I don't have the time. to make my own.
Yeah.
Because this is my full-time job, I'd
Yeah.
be making no money if I did one for myself.
Yeah.
So time is money. So, you know, I just don't.
Yeah.
And I'd
yeah.
get bored as well. I'd think,
Yeah.
I don't like that anymore after a week. And then I'd have to do something else.
Yeah, I can understand that might be the case. There's a lot of people in the Game Boy and modding community that will do builds, and eventually they'll kind of move on. They'll raffle them off, or they'll swap them for something else and things like that. I was just looking here at one of your Insta posts, and it looks like you're like full chem suit and breather mask and everything, and it says lots of clear coating done today.
Yeah.
That's how serious it is. I mean, you are looking like you're going into Chernobyl dressed like that.
Yeah, you have to be when you're messing with clear coat. You breathe
Yeah.
that stuff in, you'll be dead in a week.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk to some of the guys that deal with the resin, and they're the same. Like, you know, people have had
it's very important.
Some
health and safety is so important.
Ended up with some sort of like weird respiratory issues for a month or two when they first got into resin, and went, oh, okay, I need to take this a lot more seriously. Yeah.
I have proper 3M masks with filters on that are designed for clear coating and painting. I've got my full suit painting suit on, so I don't get any of it on my skin. And I've basically got a brand new shed, like one of those modern plasticky sheds. And I got my friend who does a lot of DIY to basically fit it out for a spray booth.
Right.
So it's all the walls are lined, insulated. It's heated inside. It's got extractor fans in it and all that sort of thing. So it's
legit.
Yeah, I've got that for my spraying, and then I've got another separate shed for drying. So I'll then take the pieces out and put them in racks to dry.
Dude, that's serious. Serious.
Yeah, it took a while to get up to that stage, but it's just like any business. You just build from the ground up, really. You know,
it's most of would you say most of your customers like in the UK or at least Europe?
No, strangely enough, most of my work goes to the USA.
Right.
I think that's to do with Etsy, because I think the USA uses Etsy a lot more than UK. I don't know about other countries, but most of my orders seem to go to USA. But I'm in the process of trying to pimp myself out more in the UK now, and locally as well. In January, I've got a show that I'm going to in Norwich called the OLL, the One Life Left gaming convention.
Oh, right.
It's going to be the biggest gaming convention in the southeast of England, and they got in contact with me and offered me to go there for free, which was nice. And they commissioned me to do some prizes for their competitions they're having there.
Oh, wowzers, dude. So that's pretty rad
for me. Yeah, because I've not really done conventions before. I should do, because it's a good way of advertising, but again, it's the time. Because you know, it's 2 days out of your schedule. It's the cost of travel, it's the cost of, you know, hiring the space to do it, and then you've got to have stuff to show. So
got to build up some stock to be there.
To make a batch of work to show, but while I'm making the batches of work, I'm not making money with the other stuff. So it's a catch-22. It's really hard to balance, you know.
There's also an element of sort of, I guess, not overreaching. There's no point sort of rocking up and sort of going, hey, look at all this cool business I can do, and having 30 people kind of approach you and say, and the response is, look, I could probably get you something by next Christmas. They'll be like, whatever, I'm just going to go and buy a PlayStation 5, dude. Sorry.
Exactly.
So, I think
you've got to have stuff to buy there and then.
There's a lot of sort of stores when you're sort of looking around for bits of Game Boys or whatever, and they look like they're amazing, but, you know, 80% of their stuff's out of stock. You're like, that's a shame. You can overreach a little bit.
And the thing with Game Boys, you know, I don't mind them, but the market is so flooded now with so many people doing quote unquote custom Game Boys. You know, they're just buying cheap new buttons and putting them in, and cheap shells, and you know, I just don't like them. They're a dime a dozen, you know.
I guess that's sort of like the most like the Game Boy, for example, has just been so prolific amongst people. If you didn't own, a bigger console, or even if you did, at some point, almost everybody owned a Game Boy. And I guess the mobility and the busy lifestyle and you being able to sort of throw it in your pocket, or, like we just went away on a family holiday, and I took my 14-inch CRT and my Mega Drive because I was going to be for 4 or 5 days, but being able to just grab a Game Boy and the people that I know, a lot of the times they're doing sort of similar to what you're doing. Like, here's my old Game Boy I was given when I was 9. I'm now 36. My eyes can't see the screen, and and they just refurb them, they recap them, and all that sort of stuff. So, but you're right.
The new screens are amazing.
Yeah, it's bonkers, eh?
The IPS panels and stuff. They really do give it a new lease of life.
There seems to be like a new screen every 4 weeks. It just keeps.
That's the trouble.
Outrunning.
That's the trouble.
And with the screen comes a lens, and with a lens comes a shell, and with a shell comes this and that and the other. It must be really hard to be in that business and stay on,
because you're going to have stock of all this stuff.
Absolutely.
To do it, so you've got to make sure that you've sold all that stock before the new one comes out. Otherwise, you're just left with dead stock. That's why I don't stock Game Boy stuff. If someone comes to me and says, I want, a custom Game Boy with this, that, and the other, then I'll buy it just for them. I won't have stock of those items. I'll buy the parts just for that order. Yeah. Whereas other mods, that they're going to be lasting for a while, so I have a certain stock of those. But with the Game Boy stuff, I tend to stay away from it now, just because the market's flooded with it. I just can't be bothered.
I think you're pretty safe in what you're doing. Like, it's one thing to sort of repair and restore, but what you're offering is fairly unique and fairly damn.
I'm going more for the high end type stuff.
Yeah, you do have a Game Boy Color here, typically one of those sort of bronzy Zelda type Game Boy Color, which is freaking amazing. Again, it's top notch. It very much is.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I don't take compliments well, but thank you.
Well, anybody that says they don't take compliments well usually knows they're a bit more comfortable in their own shoes, to be honest. Let's notice before you've had a YouTuber, the Gebs, that's got one of your SNESes. That must be pretty rad to sort of have someone like really talking about it.
Yeah, I've been
convention from home.
I've been trying to branch out to a few YouTubers to get them to take my work and review it, and just get myself out there a bit more. And we've become quite good friends through it. I've done a couple of pieces for her. She's got a great YouTube channel, the Jebs 24. And she's on Twitch as well. So she does a lot of game streaming, modern and retro. And we talk all the time, just normally as mates. And she's become a good friend.
That's nice.
She does good work for me, and we help each other out.
Yeah, it's
networking and all that stuff.
It's important that you do. I think if you are trying to make a business, like really do enough to feed yourself.
Have you heard of Nostalgia Nerd?
Yeah.
I'm doing work for him at the moment as well.
Oh, that's pretty rad.
Because he's actually Norwich based, just like me. So we live in the same city. So that helps. I'm doing him a Sega Mega Drive. I won't say what it's going to be because he wants it to be a surprise for the video. But basically, he picked up a really shoddy custom that some kid had almost painted with marker pen over this Mega Drive, and it was like a Sonic the Hedgehog type thing, but it was it was crap done by like a 5-year-old. And he basically said that it would make a good video for me to show this and you redo it in your style, so we can do the transition sort of thing. So that's kind of what we're doing.
Well, that gives away a little bit, doesn't it?
Well, a little bit, but I won't say exactly what the design and stuff's going to be, but it's going to be fun.
No worries. I'll stick.
He's big, so I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'll stick both Gebs and Nostalgia Nerd in the show notes there, so people can keep an eye out for that. Because still photography unless you're amazing and you could be Photoshop, never really shows the reality of anything. Like I've played around with a lot of hobbies and my Instagram and, you know, RC rock crawlers and Gundam and mountain bikes and dogs and freaking TV screens, and you never can quite capture it. So to see these things on video, especially with that chameleon effect, to have it sort of like swooshing around and the light shifting,
rotating,
that's so people might.
That's why I do videos now and then, just to show people that this is actually how it is. I haven't run these photos through Photoshop. I might have put an Instagram filter over it, but the colors are the colors, you know. But to see the sparkle and how the light reacts with it, you can't really get that in a photo. So to show a video is much better. I do have a YouTube channel, but I don't really do a lot with it at the moment, just purely because of time. I put a video up there every now and then, but it's something next year I need to focus more on, to get more videos of my work on YouTube. There's a lot of irons in the fires, but the time it takes to pull them out is I just don't have it. It's frustrating.
I can understand that. And I mean, if you like collaborating, I think is the term for just, you know, hooking up with this person and, you know, sort of kicking each other's can down the road. But I think when you're working as hard as you are and it's your primary source of income, you know, it's got to be treated a bit more like a business. So you got to make these decisions like, who do I want to ally with? Who do I want to trust? Because these it can easily change. Like it can easily change the way that your stuff is perceived by people. It's important. It's a business.
And I contacted them. I handpicked those people when I contacted them and said, you know, do you want to work together? And then they viewed my work and we chatted, and that was that. But there have been people come to me and said, oh, you know, can I do a video? And I've turned them down, not through disrespect, but I've looked at their channel. Like you said, I've sort of thought, doesn't really suit what I'm doing.
Your
probably
brand
won't get much exposure. They haven't got that many followers. It's a bit horrible because they're trying to grow as well. But I think in business, you have to make those tough decisions. You know, it's like I said, it's not through disrespect, but it's just the way it is, unfortunately.
No, I totally understand. There's always opportunities in whatever you're doing for someone to sort of be part of it. And sometimes your train is going in this direction, and unfortunately it does not stop at that station. And
a lot of people get lucky. It's a lot of it is who you know, and unfortunately I didn't know many people who could help me out. So a lot of it, well, all of it is just been me pushing to try and get seen, to try and get noticed. You know, a lot of people get almost handouts like, oh, I know such and such in the movie business, he can get me into this movie or whatever, you know. Some people get given parts or whatever, or, you know, they get given foot ups and onto different levels, but I've not really had any of that. So it has been hard, but you know, it's more satisfactory that way.
And so would your end state, I mean, it's hard when you're at your position, because I guess you're kind of like you're making money, but you're not rich. The only M3 you own is that N64 sort of looking thing. So you're sort of teetering on the edge of, I guess, what you would call success. But would your end state be still just you? Or, I mean, if you think real big, you know, could you have people working for you? And because the process can be perfected. I mean, could you be the raw talent studio? I mean, how big do you think when you're really
possibly one day? I try not to think too far ahead because it scares me. But I'm one of these people that kind of takes each day at a time. But I have tinkered with the idea of employing someone to help with the first steps of what I do, like the prep work, because that takes a lot of time, and
probably the least skill based. In a fashion,
but it still has to be done right. But the actual physically painting it and the designs, it would kind of need to be me, because if it's not me doing it, then it's not my work. That's kind of how I look at it, you know. But I don't think I'll ever be rich from it. That's not why I'm doing it. That I do it because I love doing it, and if I can get by doing what I love, then great. I think that's everyone's dream, really.
Yeah, and I think it's always going to be, there's several things in my life that, if I'm 48, if I could wind it back 25 years and go, oh man, you know what? I was once fit and strong and had a massive pair of balls. And if I could have started mountain biking when I was 23 and really been into it, I would have loved to have been a professional mountain biker. But it doesn't always be the fairy tale, and it's a risk that anybody needs to make. And I think it's a very special person that can go, when it gets hard, I'm going to keep persisting.
There has been times like that. I have good months, I have bad months, like any business. You've just got to kind of even it out, really. There has been struggles. I mean, when I first went proper full time with it, it was just before the pandemic hit. So I gave up my job, started doing this, and then the pandemic hit, and I thought, oh my God, what have I done?
Right.
I've technically, I'm self-employed, but I don't technically have a job. Like, where's this money going to come from? But it actually worked the other way around for me, surprisingly, because people were sat at home, not really doing much, and they were surfing the internet,
sitting on
out
Etsy.
of boredom. I made so many sales, and it really lifted the level of where I was at. It really pushed me forward over the pandemic. Which I totally didn't expect to happen. So I just rolled with it, really. It's helped me out a lot.
Good stuff, Rob. It's good to hear these stories, because it has been, I guess I don't spend a lot of time on actual social media apart from Instagram and YouTube, and that's only to consume what makes me happy. But there's been a lot of sad stories, especially in hospitality, for example. Like, there's a lot of businesses lost, and it's been primarily negative, I think, in those parts of the world. So to hear,
my partner works in beauty therapy, so she was unemployed for God knows how long.
Years.
She became depressed.
It feels now.
She became depressed, and I had to look after her and help her out as well, and keep her on her feet. And luckily she got into gardening and all that sort of stuff that a lot of people did, and that kept her mentally active. And we just had to do what we could. We managed to get through it, luckily, but unfortunately a lot of people didn't. It is very sad.
But you've been a phoenix from the ashes, basically. And I think a lot of people in your situation, and that's like a lot of the Game Boy stuff has been for the same reason. It's all the parts can be shipped to your house. All the work can be done on a bench with some very basic tools, and all the Game Boys can then be shipped away. So it's a beautiful.
I did have some problems with I did have some problems getting certain materials that I use, like clear coat and that. I had and still do have delays in getting my specific clear coat I use. It's just through delivery, from other countries or whatever. It can still take more time, and it's hard to prepare for that. But you just explain to the customer it's out of my control. I can't make it magically appear. I've put the order in, I'm waiting for it, just like you are. I just last week had my I have a fairly new mountain bike, and I had the guy used like a clear 3M tape in all the key parts that get scratches and damage, and I'd been waiting for him to kind of come back on the radar. I'd done some sort of clear tape from the hardware store just to kind of keep it clean until he got round to it. But the material he uses, he's been waiting. Like, he would normally get a top up every couple of weeks. He's been doing it for a few years, and he's like, I had to take 3 months off work. I just couldn't do it. I had to wait for that container to land. And he's like, and even now he pointed at a plastic box. He's like, I've got 4 or 5 bikes worth of material left. So they're telling me November, but it gets pushed out 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. And for him, talking about the little sort of like subconscious pressure on, I used to be able to kind of put a piece on, and if it wasn't quite right,
I just tear it off and bin it. He's like, I can't afford to tear anything off and bin it. I've got to nail it.
Yep.
And yourself with your clear coat, you're like, I must have 3 or 4 consoles here. I'm going to mix this up. If I was to waste this clear coat right now, I can't answer the phone. I can't go to the toilet. I've got to make this happen because I may not get more material for months and months and months.
And also, like I was saying about having to do it on a certain day, so it's not so humid or damp. You know, if it's a good day and you look outside and you think, oh God, this is the perfect day for clear coating, you're suddenly in a rush to get things done on that day, even though you plan to do something else that day. You sort of have to swap it over what you were doing to utilize the weather, you know.
It's incredible.
Yes, my painting sheds and stuff are temperature controlled, but they can't get rid of humidity, or they can't get rid of dampness in the air, you know. So you've really got to take advantage of those times.
Yeah, man. There's more than just grabbing a couple of cans and, you know, and gussying up your N64. There's no doubt about that.
You can grab a couple of cans, but it will look crap.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but if you want to look as good as what you've got, it takes more than a couple of cans. Oh, dude. I mean, I could probably sit here and just pick up this photo and talk to you about this and talk to you about that for hours and hours and hours. I've already taken up like an hour and a half or so of your time. So we'll sort of wrap this up and I'll let you get on with your day because it's Saturday there.
Thank you.
I tend to do a little bit of a shout out for someone who is either pretty amazing. Like you were probably like, do I shout this guy out? I'm like, damn it, I just want to have a chat with the guy because this stuff's amazing. And there's other people that like probably don't get as much attention, but their stuff's great and things like that. The person I'm going to shout out this time is Games Loose. This will be in the show notes. GAMESLOOSE. Now, it's a very, in my opinion, a very simple but effective Instagram account. It is basically pictures of games, I think primarily Super Nintendo, through a PVM, and the occasional cat sitting on the PVM. My cat would not be able to sit on my PVM because I'd probably paid more money than I should for it. And I just like to see people's libraries, you know, like when there's I think there's some kanji involved in the name. I could be wrong. But I think this person has access to a lot of, for me, it would be imports. And when you see them on a PVM, the photos of PVMs just come up so nice. It's a very consistent page. And I just love seeing when I've got my GameCube running and a buddy of mine gave me the 14-inch CRT. It's like a little NEC. I've got the 29-inch Sony.
Yeah.
But it's big and I can sit back and play Sonic. But the 14 just is as crisp. And I sat for a few hours because I've got the GC loader and I just watched the intros to about 30 GameCube games. And I was just... It's
funny you say that because
it's beautiful.
When I play on CRT, I play it on a 14-inch as well.
Yeah.
And mine is... What is mine? It's a Hitachi, actually. But it's a more modern, small... CRT, like it, I don't know what sort of screen it's got on it. It's not an LCD. It is proper tube, but it is so sharp and so crisp. And when doing that N64 RGB mod and playing it on a good CRT, my God, it looks amazing. I prefer playing it on that than the HD TV.
My 29-inch Trinitron is actually a flat screen Trinitron, still a CRT. So there's sort of some weirdness about it. I think that's why I was given it for a 6-pack. But it is a beautiful screen. And again, I can just sit back and enjoy everything. I'm doing it legit, apart from an EverDrive. But to enjoy it. So Games Loose, I just enjoy the art of, I think there's a lot of stuff around about game reviews and this and that and the other. But sometimes for me, it's just the art, the imagery, the sound. And this dude is super duper consistent. And I think he owns a couple of Candy Cab arcade machines, which is always welcome in my eyes. So Games Loose, thank you, my friend, for sharing your library, and continue on, please. And yeah, look, I'm going to hand the conch to you now. So this is your opportunity to just plug more of yourself, or anybody that you work with, or anybody that you just enjoy. Yeah, well, we've already spoken about the Gebs and Nostalgia Nerd, and also we chatted a bit about RGB Retro. So yeah, up to you. I'll leave it up to you now, buddy.
Okay. Well, the people that the company that supplies my paint is called Perfect Pearls and Pigments. They're on Instagram at Perfect Pearls and Pigments. So check them out. They make amazing custom paint. My mods, internal mods, are supplied to me by a friend called Duncan's Deals. That's Duncan's_deals on Instagram. So he basically supplies me with the boards that I can assemble myself and put the components on, or he supplies me with the boards ready-made for me to fit.
Right.
So he helps me out with buying them. Yep. He's very good as well. So definitely check their Instagrams out. But yeah, the Jebs24, check her out on Instagram. Yep. And Twitter and YouTube and all that sort of stuff.
Get to see that beautiful snares, like, you know, just in good light and moving around. And
yeah, she's got a good video on that. Yeah, and a couple of other pieces of my work as well. So cool. Yeah, and stay tuned, because there'll be other stuff coming very soon, especially that Sega Saturn that's almost ready. So yeah, and I occasionally do raffles as well. Okay, I raffle work off, and got to make space. People can enter for a small amount of money. Yeah. And yeah, thanks ever so much.
No worries, man. Well, like I said, I love seeing what you put out. It's all pretty damn gorgeous. I really appreciate your time just sitting here with me and sharing some of your sort of experience. And there's always going to be someone out there there's always going to be a few different people. The people that sort of thought, oh, this will be easy. And there's the people that know there's the people that know it's challenging. And
that was me thinking it would be easy.
Yeah.
And then realized it wasn't, but I decided to push on.
Yeah. So, but it always amazes me, the people that I've met in this hobby that will openly admit that I thought it was going to be easy, but I still insisted, no matter how many times it didn't work out for me, I was going to do it. And I stuck it out. And, you know,
that's where the real satisfaction is.
It is. Yeah. And people, God bless it, because we need people like you, because I want things that only my imagination can give me. And people like you are making these things real physical things that even I could buy. So
I try.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And yeah, I think we'll kind of wrap it up there.
Okey-doke.
And yeah, if you've been listening, go check out Rob's stuff, and yeah, give a follow and a like, and maybe put a meal on Rob's table. That's how artists work.
Feed my kids.
Yeah. That's how artists work. I've had a few.
And my cats.
Yeah, the cats.
And my fish.
Don't make Rob feed his cats to his kids. That would be terrible.
Or my fish to my cats.
Or your fish to the cats, and then the cats to the kids, and then everybody's happy for.
Then I'll have to eat my own kids.
Oh no! Oh, it's so dystopian. I've had a number of artists on, and it is really how they make a living. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that, because some people are modern and they still go to their job Monday to Friday, and they make a few bucks. And I think they're really just getting high on their own supply and having the best toys that they can have. But some people are really giving it a crack. And
yeah, that's the only thing. I don't have many of my own toys, but I get to play every single console because I have to test them. So
yeah,
I kind of technically do have every console, but they're not mine to keep.
Yeah. All right, bud. Thanks so much for your time. You have a great weekend.
No, thank you.
You and I will be in touch, and I'll keep drooling at your Instagram.
It's been a pleasure.
All right, buddy. We'll catch you later.
Thank you.